Part 17. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 168. Zhang Shiyu said from the side, Sister Yutong is right. And don't be discouraged. Everyone has their own fate. Maybe there is such a person waiting for you. You are good at gynecology, how could I forget this? Du Wenru stretched out her arm generously. Miss Zhang, help me see if there is any chance of my body being cured. The ancients believed that having more children would bring happiness, so how could anyone really want to spend the rest of his life in a nunnery? Aunt Du's complexion is very good. I have to find out the cause of the disease first before I can prescribe the right medicine, Zhang Shiyu said, and reached out to feel Du Wenru's pulse. After a while, Zhang Shiyu asked Du Wenru to change her wrist to check the pulse. Auntie, will your period come on time? Du Wenru shook his head. Menstruation is on time, just like a healthy person. Zhang Shiyu took back her hand and asked, do you have abdominal pain? Occasionally, I have no more abdominal pain after being treated by the imperial doctor. With smooth and strong blood vessels, Zhang Shiyu frowned slightly and thought to herself. Is it a rare case of not ovulating? There is no medical equipment here, so there is no way to find out the specific cause. Just when Zhang Shiyu was puzzled, Du Yutong said angrily, Auntie, have you ever thought about it? The problem is not with you, but with the other party. But his concubine in the backyard also gave birth to a son. How to explain this? Thinking of the palace fight drama she had watched, Zhang Shiyu's heart was lifted. She pursed her lips and chuckled. How many children do the second concubines of the Wei family have? Who do they look more like? This. Du Wenru hesitated. Seeing her aunt frowning in thought, Du Yutong took over the conversation and said, Auntie, just tell the truth. The baby born in the concubine's concubine is very silly, and he doesn't look like the dandy Wei family at all. To tell you the truth, Miss Zhang, the sons of the Wei family are not good in character and have good looks. The concubine is the eldest maid in the old lady's room, so she looks naturally pretty and lovely. The child is well born and is treated like this by you. I think Bao really doesn't look like anyone else. Du Wenru paused and continued, one of the concubines in the backyard gave birth to a daughter. The little girl and her mother were carved out of the same mold. Other concubines also said they were pregnant, but they didn't wait for the baby to be born. No, luckily I never care about what happens in his backyard, so if anything happens, it won't be my fault. From Du Wenru's few words, Zhang Shiyu sensed the danger in the back house of the Wei family. Judging from the pulse pattern, Aunt Du's health is fine. Before Zhang Shiyu finished speaking, Du Wenru's eyes turned red and her voice choked with sobs. Is Miss Zhang serious? Is there anything wrong with my health? Not only is it okay, but it's also healthy. Du Wenru, who had always been optimistic, could not suppress his grievance at this time, and tears instantly poured down. I always thought there was something wrong with me, and I tolerated him everywhere. 1 year after we got married, he never came into my room, and I didn't even dare to complain. Hearing his aunt crying, Du Yutong hugged Du Wenru's shoulders and her eyes were red. Auntie, you have never come home to talk about your life. You have stayed alone in the empty house for so many years since you were married. You are not sick. Don't go and marry Zhang Zhengming. His family's back house is even more chaotic. Dad doesn't know yet. You must to refuse. Du Wenru wiped her tears and said, the Zhang family's concubine has moved into the Wei family's eldest brother's house. I don't want to have anything to do with the Wei family anymore. My aunt will listen to you and don't want to be Zhang Zhenming's second wife. Ahem, Sister Yutong, since my aunt is not sick, I will go back now. Let's see you another day. Zhang Shiyu was still thinking about other things, and she felt a little uncomfortable when the name of her cheap father was mentioned. Du Yutong stroked Du Wenru's back, I'll see Sister Zhang off. How about Aunt Du and Yutong come to my house as guests some other day? Miss Zhang, wait a minute. Du Wenru stood up and walked to the dressing table, opened the dressing box, took out a golden silk inlaid with ruby doubloon, dotted with green steps, and walked to Zhang Shiyu. She said softly, "Don't say no, I have never worn this rocker before. It is an item from Zhenbao Fang. This is a meeting gift given to you by your aunt. Zhenbao Fang is the best jewelry shop in the capital, with the most innovative and expensive styles. Most of the people who visit it are ladies from aristocratic families. It is said that gifts from elders are indispensable, but before Zhang Shiyu could refuse, Bulletin Yao had already been put on by her aunt of the Du family. Aunt, this meeting gift is too precious. Shiyu came here empty-handed today, and she really deserves it." Du Yutong stepped forward and held Zhang Shiyu's hand to take off Bulletin Yao's hand. "This is my aunt's wish. Sister Zhang can't go against my aunt's wish. Today you helped my aunt get rid of her worries. You deserve it. This is the most suitable rocker for you to wear. Can I call you Yu?" Du Wenru held Zhang Shiyu's other hand with a smile. "Of course. Yu is just like Sister Yutong. I wish I could call you aunt." "That's great, I have another niece." Du Wenru was as happy as a girl who had not yet left the court, and her hearty laughter attracted the maids outside the house to frequently look into the house. After bidding farewell to Du Wenru, Zhang Shiyu and Du Yutong walked towards the gate of Du Mansion. "Sister Zhang, seeing that my aunt has confidence in the future again, I feel at ease. It seems that I have to take back my decision to grow my hair and become an aunt," Du Yutong said with emotion. "This world is not tolerant of women, and most of the people who make trouble for women are women." Zhang Shiyu smiled, "Whether you are happy or not, you have to give it a try. Sister Zhang, why don't you fight for your own happiness? When it comes to Jishitang, everyone in the capital knows it, but many people haven't seen your true face yet, otherwise the threshold of your clinic would be trampled by matchmakers." Zhang Shiyu lowered her voice and showed a mysterious smile. "I am trying hard, and I am fighting with my son." "Son? Sister Zhang, you have a son?" Du Yutong took a step back to take care of Zhang Shiyu's graceful figure. He couldn't tell that the person in front of him was a person who had given birth to a child. "I don't believe it. Sister Zhang, your waist is thinner than mine. You don't look like someone who has given birth to a child. You have adopted a son, right?" Seeing the coachman waiting at the door, Zhang Shiyu waved her hand. "You will know later. I have something to do in a hurry. See you later." Watching the carriage go away, Du Yutong didn't look away for a long time. "It's incredible. What happened to her? Why does she seem to be so different from the eldest lady of the Zhang family she had seen before? Second sister, what are you looking at? Is Dad back?" Hearing her brother's voice above her head, Du Yutong turned her head suddenly. "Brother, why are you back so early?" Du Shizheng shook his head and sighed. "Second sister doesn't care about her brother at all. I was busy yesterday and only came home now." "Is it early?" Du Yutong looked carefully at her brother's sword-like eyebrows. There were two bright dark circles under his eyes. His official robe was wrinkled and there were ink stains on his sleeves. "Brother, what are you doing?" Du Shizheng looked a little tired. "Let's go into Dad's study to talk." After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 169. Du Zhong had already finished his duty and went home. Du Shizheng saw that the door of his father's study was ajar, so he stopped and said, "Second sister, don't go in. I'm going to discuss official business with father." Du Yutong. Her brother was the military magistrate, and had almost no connection with the Dali temple. She needed to avoid discussing anything. Du Yutong responded obediently. Seeing her brother knock on the door and enter the study, she turned around and tiptoed to the window. "Yesterday, the emperor summoned me to the palace. The Prime Minister is now detained in the palace by the Jinyue. The Emperor is personally trying the case. Has the discrepancy in the number of weapons in the armory been clarified? His father's voice was cold, and Du Yutong shuddered when he heard it. Father, this is exactly what I want to tell you. A few days ago, the Emperor sent people to the armory to check the number. There were more than 100 weapons that were wrong. Hearing the conversation between his father and brother, Du Yutong's legs went weak. He thought to himself, it's over, my brother is in big trouble this time. The number of weapons is wrong, he, a 6th rank supervisor, will be demoted to the bottom, no, he should be detained. Du Yutong was startled and moved forward. Then he heard his brother say again, Aunt has returned home, we don't have to be tied to the Wei family anymore, I have submitted the list, the Emperor didn't say how to punish me, and let me go home and reflect on myself. Well done, don't look at the new Emperor's youth, he didn't deal with the old ministers immediately since he ascended the throne, it is said that the snake should be hit at its weakest point, the Emperor is a ruthless person, we must protect ourselves in the future, and don't associate with those people anymore. After Du Zhong finished speaking, he was secretly glad that he got the advice of Miss Zhang that night, otherwise the Jinyue's knife would be pointed at the Dali temple. The carriage of the Du mansion sent Zhang Shuyu to the door of the Zhang mansion, and Zhang Shuyu gave the coachman a reward and entered the mansion. Just after entering the hall, Gao Mu and Ken Yun also came back. Miss, Juxian Pavilion has been sealed, and Fang Yazi can't find out who the owner of the restaurant is. Is there no other restaurant for sale or rent? Ken Yun hurriedly bowed, Miss, you don't know, Ziwixian Pavilion is on Zhengdong Street, the location is the best, there are many nobles there, and merchants from all over the country settle there. Juxian Pavilion is a restaurant and an inn in one, and the chef is also the best in the capital. Zhang Shuyu naturally knows without Ken Yun's explanation. She looked at Gao Mu, are you saying that there are no other restaurants that have been sold? Fang Yazi said that the business in the capital is getting better and better now, and no one will sell the restaurant for the time being. Then wait a little longer. The villagers have just brought back the meat rabbits, and it will take at least half a year before a large number of meat rabbits are on the market. Back in the yard, she flashed into the space, checked the sorted cases, and looked at the remaining silver, which was more than enough to buy Ziwixian Pavilion. After leaving the space, Kyoju walked in with Sui Sui. Mother, the pair of little rabbits were given back to Brother Siet. He insisted on giving me a copybook. I couldn't refuse it, so I had to accept it. Sui Sui handed over a copybook. Zhang Shuyu took a look and found that it was indeed the regular script of Qingling Mountain Man, which was very suitable for students who had just entered school to practice. Kyoja thought of the scene of the scholars in King Yunzai discussing poetry, and she suggested, Miss, I see that Mr. Xie often goes to the study to look at the poetry wall. Why don't you write another poem and hang it in the study? Okay, you prepare the pen and ink, and send the doorman to hang it later. Zhang Shuyu asked Lanner to take Sui Sui down to play. After a while, the room was filled with the fragrance of ink. Zhang Shuyu thought for a moment, picked up the pen and wrote it in one stroke. Thick clouds and fog filled Xiaoxiang, and the fallen leaves were frightening and the night was long. Drawing the sword several times, singing generously, raising the cup and looking around, the color was desolate. Zhang Shuyu hesitated for a while, and finally signed it with the word Yuniang. Looking at the young lady's bright smile, Kyoja reminded her, Young lady, tomorrow is the day you have an appointment with Dr. Lin to go to the palace. Zhang Shuyu put down her writing brush and ink, let's rest early tonight. After nightfall, Zhang Shuyu went to the affordable grain shop again. In addition to grains, the shop also had rice and flour. Nangang Ziyu contacted the grain merchant. When they returned to the mansion, the moon was already above the treetops. In the next yard, Nangang Ziyu was biting a wild apple with a crackling sound. It's so sweet. Our Sui Sui is the best. She always thinks of her uncle wherever she goes. Looking at the little left after being made by Nangong Ziyu, Sui Sui yawned and said, "Uncle Nangong, don't eat. If you are hungry, ask the kitchen to cook a bowl of noodles for you." Nangong Ziyu flicked the fruit core in his hand out of the window, looked down at the bamboo basket, and ate all the big ones in it. He took a handkerchief and wiped the corner of his lips, and said softly, "Sui Sui, uncle is full, you take a rest first, I will take all the apples here to your mother, she will enter the palace tomorrow." After covering Sui Sui with a quilt, Nangong Ziyu jumped over the wall with a bamboo basket. Gao Mu and Ken Yun happened to be patrolling on the other side of the wall. Seeing Nangong Ziyu jumping over the wall, Gao Mu stepped forward and bowed and asked, "Mr. Nangong, did the young master sleep well? With me accompanying him, of course he can sleep well. Next, taste it, it tastes good." The sound of breaking through the air sounded, and Gao Mu and Ken Yun reached out to take the apples flying towards them. "This, the little one can't eat it. The young master said that he would keep some to send to the palace to honor the emperor. A person who is infatuated and abandoned, I'm afraid he will be gnashing his teeth. Just eat it if you ask you to, why are you so talkative?" Ken Yun and Gao Mu looked at each other as Nangong Ziyu walked towards the young lady's yard. Ken Yun was confused. The emperor didn't hold a beauty contest, so how could he be considered as someone who had seduced and then abandoned her? The apple in his hand became a hot potato, and it was difficult to eat it or not. After Gao Mu was stunned for a moment, he picked up the apple, wiped it on his sleeve, and bit off half of it in one bite. "Old Gao, you really eat it? There are not many sent to the palace. Young Master Nangong asked us to eat it. There is nothing good in the palace, and these 2 apples are not bad." Gao Mu disagreed. There were some things he couldn't say. Young Master Nangong had been with Sui Sui for more days than the young lady herself, and the emperor has not given the young lady a name until now. He heard Kyoja talk about how the young lady escaped from the manor and drifted to Yunling village. When she encountered drought, she fled to Yan'an. Gao Mu felt sorry for the young lady. "You are right. When the new emperor ascended the throne, neighboring countries will come to congratulate him. There are all kinds of rare things. The emperor didn't make our young master a prince or anything. Eating one less wild apple is nothing." Ken Yun no longer hesitated. After 2 bites, the apple was gone. After finishing the meal, he smacked his lips with a feeling of unfulfilled desire. If only the young lady had stayed at the farm for 2 more days, she might have found undiscovered fruit trees on the top of the mountain. In the Xingya courtyard, Kyoja heard a knock on the door and walked out. "Mr. Nangong, what are you doing?" "This is for Sushui to honor the emperor. Tomorrow Sushui will go to a private school and will not have time to enter the palace." Looking at the half-green and half-red bumps in the bamboo basket, Kyoja's mouth twitched. She clearly remembered that there were several big and red ones in it, but after Nangong Ziyu chopped them around, only a few crooked melons and cracked dates were left. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 170. In the early morning, Zhang Shuya put on a crescent white dress. Wearing 2 white jade plum blossom hairpins on her temples, her long hair is vertical to her waist. The morning breeze blows, and her white clothes are flowing, like a fairy descending to earth. His eyes were as clear as a stream, with a touch of coldness, and seemed to be able to see through everything. As soon as the carriage arrived at the palace gate, there were already guards waiting for it. This time it was different. After entering the palace gate, a chariot came to greet him. Sitting on the chariot, Zhang Shuya caught a glimpse of Qiuju's empty hands. She reminded Qiuju, "Don't forget the things you brought with you every year. "Miss, this is really a gift." Qiuju stopped and looked at Gao Mu. She originally wanted to leave her behind on purpose, but was discovered by the lady. Gao Mu quickly turned around and took out an exquisite pastry box from the carriage. "Take it, it's all in your heart, big or small." Qiuju had no choice but to bite the bullet and take the box. Zhang Shiyu seemed to have seen through her little thoughts and said with a smile, "I will send it to you personally in a while without losing your face. What is there to worry about?" Qiuju. She was afraid of losing the lady's face. The only gift given to the palace was a few leftover wild apples, which was probably unprecedented, and only her young lady could do it. This time, sitting on the chariot, I had a great view, with an unobstructed view of the majestic palace. Seeing the beautiful and antique palace, Zhang Shiyu had the illusion of visiting the Forbidden City. When the palace maids and eunuchs passed by the chariot, they all stopped and bowed their heads in salute, and waited until the chariot passed before they stepped forward. Rules and etiquette are particularly strict within the high palace walls. When passing by the imperial garden, a row of ginkgo trees comes into view. The autumn wind rustled, the leaves were flying in the air, and a palace maid kept sweeping under the tree. Seeing the palace maid putting the golden fallen leaves into the bamboo basket, Zhang Shiyu secretly said it was a pity. You can obviously enjoy the scenery of golden armor all over the place, but to be ignored like this is really a waste of natural resources. On a palace building in the distance, a figure in bright yellow stood with his hands behind his back. Seeing the chariot getting closer and closer, he pursed his thin lips and twisted his knuckled fingers. "Master, Miss Zhang only brought her maid into the palace." The young master didn't come. Xiang Yang thought for a while and reminded in a low voice. After Xiang Yang became the deputy commander of the Jinyi Guard, he became more cautious in his words. He firmly remembered Xiang Song's advice. He must be more cautious in his words and deeds now than before. As the emperor's right-hand man, he could not make mistakes that would embarrass his master. Xiao Jingzhao said softly, turned around and went downstairs. After turning around a palace wall, Lin Miao led a young man to greet him, and said with a smile, "Yu Yetu, I've finally been waiting for you to come. I've decorated the examination room in Taiyuan Hospital, and I'm just waiting for you to come." As promised to Uncle Lin, how could my little girl not come? When Zhang Shiyu saw the chariot stopped, she walked down with a smile. "This is Suan, my close disciple." Lin Miao pulled Suan, who had his head down, and said, "See Sister Zhang soon." "I've met Zhang, Sister Zhang." Suan raised his head and glanced at Zhang Shiyu, his cheeks turning red. This fairy-like woman should only exist in heaven and is rarely heard of in the world. He can call her sister. He is so happy. Looking at the shy look of the young boy, Zhang Shiyu smiled slightly and said, "Suan will study hard with Uncle Lin. When you have mastered the basics, my sister will give you some pharmacology manuscripts." Zhang Shiyu didn't expect this to happen when she came, so she didn't prepare a meeting gift. She liked him very much when she saw that the young man was handsome, his eyes were as clean as springs, and he was about the same age as Sunan. Suan bowed again and thanked him. Seeing Qiuju holding a pastry box in her hand, she looked anxiously into the distance. Lin Miaoxiao smiled and said, "Qiuju is afraid that Uncle Lin will be greedy in the palace, so she specially brings me cakes." Qiuju's hand holding the box tightened and she stuttered, "No, it's not a pastry, it's a gift from the young master to the emperor." Naturally, the emperor's gift could not be cut off. Lin Miaoxiao turned aside and said, "The emperor is very busy these days. He may still be discussing matters with the ministers in the main hall at this time. Since the emperor is not available, let's go to the imperial hospital first." Zhang Shiyu didn't know how to get to Taiyuan Hospital. She raised her eyes and looked at Lin Miaoxiao. The guard on the side stepped forward and cupped his hands and said, "Girl, please come this way, the emperor is in the royal study. The emperor's food cannot be handed over to others, it must be delivered in person. Zhang Shiyu said to Lin Miaoxiao, Uncle Lin, do you want to go with us? The emperor didn't summon us, so we don't dare to disturb us. Suan and I will just wait for you outside, Lin Miaoxiao said, pointing to the intersection not far away. Following the guard to the outside of the royal study, the eunuch at the door bowed and stepped aside when he saw the guard wearing the clothes of a royal guard. Eunuch Ma was waiting at the door of the imperial study room. When he saw Zhang Shiyu, he immediately shouted inside, Miss Zhang, here you go. Xian. In the imperial study room, the man's voice was deep and magnetic, with a charm that made people feel slightly swayed. Eunuch Ma came out with a smile on his face. Wait for me, I'll be out soon. Zhang Shiyu took the box from Qiuju's hand and walked in. He was worthy of being the chief eunuch. After bringing Zhang Shiyu into the royal study, Eunuch Ma quickly retreated to avoid it. Meet the emperor. Without courtesy, come sit down and talk. Zhang Shiyu just bent down slightly, then straightened up and walked forward when she heard the excuse. Xiao Jingzhao is wearing a bright yellow straight shirt with lifelike flying dragons on it, and colorful auspicious clouds embroidered on the wide sleeves. There is no magnificent wave pattern on the hem of the robe, which makes it less heavy. At first glance, it is the regular clothes worn by the emperor. Her black hair is tied high on her head, with a rare cat's eye gem embedded in the crown. A strand of black hair hanging on her temples added an indescribable charm to her originally cold and handsome face. Seeing Zhang Shiyu approaching, Xiao Jingzhao felt his eyes light up, and his phoenix eyes as bright as stars filled with a hint of warmth. She is still so refined, bright and charming, with perseverance and confidence in her gentleness, and her smart eyes seem to be able to see through everything in the world. The Taiyuan hospital is leaderless now, so I leave the selection of talents to you. Xiao Jingzhao got straight to the point. You're welcome. It only takes 1 day to select someone with superb medical skills who can take on a big position. With a slight smile on her face, Zhang Shiyu handed the box over with both hands. This is Sui Sui's wish. A warm current flowed through Xiao Jingzhao's heart. It feels so good to have a son, and he is thinking about him. It is said that the royal family is ruthless, and sitting on that dragon chair means being alone. He wants to change everything. Just as he was about to stretch out his hand, Xiangyang quickly stepped forward, bowed and took the box, and said with a heartfelt smile, My young master is interested. Xiangyang carefully held the box in front of Xiao Jingzhao. Xiao Jingzhao looked at the delicate box and resisted the urge to open it. Your filial piety is commendable. You have taught your son well. You have worked hard. Xiao Jingzhao praised Zhang Shiyu without hesitation. That's right, the little master Bingxiu is smart and filial, and the girl teaches well. Xiangyang smiled flatteringly. At this time, he saw that Zhang Shiyu's hair was full of virtue. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 171. Zhang Shiyu smiled lightly, Your Majesty, thank you. He is a sensible child. Does he like that kaju? The child is still young, maybe he will like it when he is older, Zhang Shiyu said euphemistically and truthfully. Xiao Jingzhao was a little surprised. He had liked kaju since he was a child. Even when he couldn't play, he watched the soldiers in the military camp playing kaju with great interest. Zhang Shiyu frowned slightly and said calmly, This kid doesn't know who he is following. He is so fond of eating that even the cooks in the house don't know how to cook. After Zhang Shiyu finished speaking, she raised her eyes and looked at Xiao Jingzhao. Xiao Jingzhao took over the conversation without thinking, What's the difficulty? Let Xiangyang go to the imperial kitchen to choose 2 cooks to take back. When he enters Taiyuan University, he can have the imperial kitchen deliver meals to him every day. It's not that the cooks are not good at cooking, it's that they can't buy the ingredients that the children want to eat. When Xiao Jingzhao heard that this was a big deal, he waved his hand and said, Leave this matter to Xiangyang. If the ingredients are not available in the capital, you can buy them from the caravan. Whatever the young master likes, I will write it down right away, Xiang Yang said, and went to get the wolf hair from the pen holder. Zhang Shiyu successfully introduced the topic, turned around, walked to the carved Nanmu chair not far away, and sat down. Don't remember too much, just remember what you can eat in this half-month. If it's really too late, it doesn't matter if it's half a month later. Zhang Shiyu said it calmly. Xiang Yang vowed, don't worry, girl, even if the young master wants to eat prawns, there will be several caravans coming to Beijing every 10 days or less. It was probably because Xiao Jingzhao felt that Xiang Yang's handwriting was not good, so he laid out the white paper, took the wolf hair and dipped it in ink. Seeing that he was ready, Zhang Shiyu said slowly, lentils, peppers, tomatoes. Wait a minute, are you sure these are the vegetables of the season? Xiao Jingzhao paused, leaving only a ball of ink on the white paper. He raised his eyes and looked at Zhang Shiyu. I thought to myself. This woman exuded an unearthly spirit. She probably didn't know what vegetables were available at the market this season. Zhang Shiyu's butterfly feather-like eyelashes trembled. The vegetables I just mentioned are all the vegetables I love to eat. It would be best if I could buy them from the guard. Xiang Yang. It's better to strike me to death with a thunderbolt. Farmers can't grow the vegetables you mentioned this season, so we might as well try another one. For example, there are cabbage, potatoes, and radishes, Xiao Jingzhao reminded. There are too few vegetables after the end of autumn, and I get tired of eating them every year. Why don't I go outside the city and pick all the wild fruits from Yanhui Mountain to honor you? Xiao Jingzhao. My son is indeed filial. From ancient times to the present, at the end of autumn, vegetables in the north begin to be scarce. There is no way around it. Zhang Shiyu smiled slightly and said, who said there is nothing we can do? It's just that no one does it. Xiao Jingzhao looked confused, do you have any idea? Zhang Shiyu nodded slightly, her bright smile showing calmness and confidence, which made Xiao Jingzhao forget to look away. Then Zhang Shiyu explained the principles of greenhouse vegetables. There was a greenhouse for growing flowers in the palace, and Xiao Jingzhao understood it as soon as he heard it. But there is one kind of material that I don't have. The emperor should have it. You can just say, as long as the Wanling state owns it, I will find it for you. Xiao Jingzhao did not dare to brag this time. If Wanling Kingdom didn't have anything, he might not be able to find it. Seeing that Xiao Jingzhao was interested in this matter, Zhang Shiyu was not polite and said directly, I bought a village at the foot of Yanhui Mountain and plan to build a greenhouse. I need glazed paste for the roof. Lu Ligu, Xiang Yang stumbled, his voice breaking slightly. Xiao Jingzhao flew over with a knife, and Xiang Yang swallowed his saliva and quickly shut up. The girl really doesn't like the fireworks of the world. The output of the glass paste in a year is very small, which can be said to be something that even money can't buy. However, the girl uses it to build a shed and grow vegetables. It is really a waste of natural resources. When vegetables are grown in the greenhouse, I will send someone to deliver a copy to the palace. Zhang Shiyu didn't know how much the glass paste was worth, but she didn't want to take advantage of Xiao Jingzhao in vain. No problem. Whenever you need it, I'll have someone deliver it to you. Xiao Jingzhao had a smile in his eyes. Then he told Xiang Yang, take people to the official kill in person to take a look and take as much as you can. If there is not enough, you can take down everything that is used in the palace. Xiang Yang lowered his eyelids and cupped his hands and said, I obey my orders. One moment Xiang Yang saw the girl as a virtuous woman, but the next time he looked at her, she felt like a prodigal woman. With Xiao Jingzhao's promise, Zhang Shiyu stood up and said, I'm going to the Imperial Hospital right now, and the list will be handed over to the Imperial Court before dark. Then he raised his eyes and looked at Xiang Yang, Gao Mu is familiar with you. Once you find Li Yulai Mu, just go to Zhang Mansion and contact him. Watching Zhang Shiyu's back walk away, Xiao Jingzhao opened the box, and there were several fruits the size of a child's fist lying inside. Your Majesty, the glaze paste that Miss Zhang needs is important. I will go to the official kill to have a look. Xiangyang glanced at the fruit that made sour water appear in his mouth and was about to run away. Xiao Jingzhao waved his hand and said, "Bring more hands and don't break it." He ran out as if running away from the sun, knocking Eunuch Ma off his back when he came in. "I'm sorry, Vice Commander Xiang, it's my slave who walks without eyes." Eunuch Ma grinned in pain and didn't forget to apologize to Xiangyang. Xiangyang grabbed Eunuch Ma's collar and lifted it hard, and the man lying on the ground stood up immediately. He lightly dusted Eunuch Ma's shoulder and said, "You're welcome, Eunuch Ma. Just don't walk so hastily in the future." After that, he walked away. Eunuch Ma. It was he who was pressed down. Was it really because he walked too fast? Eunuch Ma touched his dizzy head and bent down to pick up the dust on the ground. Seeing the deputy commander walking away, Eunuch Ma slapped his forehead and turned to walk inside. "Your Majesty, the ministers are already waiting in Xianzheng Hall." In front of the desk, Xiao Jingzhao was holding an apple in his hand, thinking about something. Hearing Eunuch Ma's voice, he put the apple back into the box and closed the lid before Eunuch Ma could see what was inside. Xiao Jingzhao put away his expression and walked out, with a sharp look in his eyes. In the side hall of Xianzheng Hall, the ministers looked solemn and sorted out the files in front of them. Zhang Zhengming looked at the files sorted out in front of him, and cold sweat dripped down his forehead. As the Minister of Revenue, he was in charge of taxes and household registration, and also held the income and expenditure of court salaries and food wages in his hands. Prime Minister Wei was a powerful and influential person, and he was also the former father-in-law of the emperor. He had helped Prime Minister Wei more than once. For a prime minister, it was not a problem to have hundreds of servants in his mansion. But it turned out that the prime minister had someone take weapons from the armory back to the mansion and distributed them to the servants in the mansion. The evidence was irrefutable, and Prime Minister Wei was doomed. Zhang Zhengming regretted his decision because he was still related to the Wei family by marriage. The fact that his concubine married into the Wei family could not be changed. He could only take the initiative to hand over the evidence of Prime Minister Wei's embezzlement of money in order to ask the emperor to punish him leniently. The side hall was so quiet that only the rustling of files could be heard. At this time, a eunuch came in with tea and cakes. "Everyone, please eat some cakes to fill your stomach. The emperor will be back soon." After the morning court, the emperor kept everyone in the side hall. Zhang Zhengming had no mind to eat cakes. He was so anxious that he had just drunk a lot of tea. Suddenly, he had to go to the bathroom, so he stood up and walked toward the side door of the side hall. He looked up and saw several people walking toward the Imperial Hospital in the distance. One of them looked very familiar. Why is she in the palace? After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 172. Zhang Zhengming was stunned. He didn't care about the urgency and took a few steps forward. The figure quickly disappeared around the corner of the palace wall. Zhang Zhengming rubbed his eyes and was sure that he was not mistaken. At this time, several palace maids happened to come towards him. Zhang Zhengming didn't care about etiquette. He stepped forward to block the maid's steps and asked, "Who just walked by you?" Several palace maids looked at each other. In the palace, no official had been so abrupt. One of the palace maids probably saw the official robes Zhang Zhengming was wearing, and hurriedly bowed and saluted, "Your Excellency is asking about the people in the Imperial Hospital. Today, the Imperial Hospital is being evaluated, and the Emperor specially invited a famous female doctor from the capital to the palace." Is the surname of the person coming? Zhang Zhengming didn't know what he was expecting, and he blurted out a sentence. The palace maid shook her head, "I don't know, I just heard that it was a female doctor from Jishitang." It turned out to be her. Jiang Zhengming staggered back to make way. Several palace maids glanced at Jiang Zhengming with strange eyes and continued to walk forward. Walking into the gate of the Imperial Hospital, a faint smell of herbs hit me in the face. Jiang Shuyu raised her eyes and saw rows of tables and chairs in the middle of the yard. The first row of tables were piled with herbs, more than 20 kinds. "Uncle Lin, what are you doing?" "Shh. You girl, you must be tested on the blindfolded medicine recognition test." Lin Miaoxiao lowered her voice, with a mysterious look on her face. Jiang Shuyu understood immediately that Uncle Lin must have discovered that there were quacks in the Imperial Hospital. Those quacks, who can't cure diseases and save people, have a way to harm people. Those who can sneak into the Imperial Hospital must be the pawns of the nobles in the harem of the previous dynasty. The Imperial doctors in the Imperial Hospital are all for the nobles. When seeing Jiang Shuyu, Lin Miaoxiao introduced her again as a special invitation by the emperor. Most people know that she is a female doctor from Jishitang. It is said that she is good at gynecology, but she doesn't show it on her face, and she is not taken seriously in her heart. After everything was ready, Jiang Shuyu asked the palace maid beside her to distribute the black cloth strips that Lin Miaoxiao had already prepared to everyone. She pointed to the people in front and said, "Blindfold your eyes 5 steps away, and come forward to say the name and medicinal properties of the medicinal materials one by one." As soon as the voice fell, someone stood up to object. "Miss is not from the palace, you may not know the rules of the palace. We don't blame you for this. It's unnecessary to ask such a simple question as identifying medicine." Jiang Shuyu looked at the person who spoke. The man was about 40 years old and should be an old man in the Imperial Hospital. She smiled lightly and asked slowly, "This Imperial physician, you are so sure that this is a simple question? I guess you can identify it by smelling it, then please demonstrate it to everyone, so that everyone can see if this is unnecessary." The man's eyes flashed a trace of panic, and under the gaze of everyone, he walked forward with a stiff upper lip. "Excuse me, what is this Imperial physician good at?" The man said unhappily, "I used to be responsible for regulating the health of several ladies, which is considered gynecology." "Well, that's right. Anyone who can take the pulse of the Empress must have superb medical skills. Let's start." Before Jiang Shuyu came, Lin Miaoxiao told everyone that she was specially invited by the emperor. Seeing that the woman looked delicate but spoke skillfully, the others put away their contemptuous eyes. The man quickly glanced at the medicinal materials, and he could see clearly what medicinal materials were in the wooden boxes that were close. For those that were far away, they really had to rely on smell. Anamarina, Radix remini, Licorice, Buplurum. The man got stuck after saying the 10th name of the medicine. He grabbed the medicinal materials and squeezed them repeatedly, but he couldn't smell out what kind of herb it was. Apprentices don't have to participate in the assessment. After the first round, 8 people were eliminated. Lin Miaoxiao took the shortest time to identify the medicine by smell. Jiang Shuyu didn't give everyone a chance to continue to participate in the second round of the exam. The second round is to diagnose based on the case. More than 10 people failed this round, including those who failed the first round. Just as everyone looked down on Jiang Shuyu, they were now afraid of her, and their eyes looked at her differently. From gynecology to internal medicine to trauma and common pediatric diseases. After a whole day of assessment, Jiang Shuyu sorted out the test results. There were 10 first-class imperial doctors with good results, and the rest were mediocre. Among them, the medical skills of female doctors were even worse, and they could be regarded as midwives at most. Thinking that her son would go to the palace to study one day, Jiang Shuyu did not dare to be careless or soft-hearted. She distinguished all the suspicious people from the unqualified ones. Although some people were unqualified, they could also be assigned to apprentices. How to choose to deal with them specifically was not her job. Zhang Shiyu sorted out the list and handed it to the guards and left the palace. Looking at the list on the imperial case, Xiao Jingzhao immediately dismissed the suspicious people and let them go out of the palace. Lin Miaxiao's grades were among the best, so she was naturally promoted to the head of the academy. After leaving the palace, Zhang Shiyu asked Gao Mu to go back to the mansion first, and she took Kyoja to the street for a walk. "Miss, do you want to buy some food or look at fabrics?" Kyoja secretly complained in her heart that the young lady had been busy all day and was so tired that her back and waist ached, and the emperor didn't know to reward her with 2 pieces of good fabrics. There were 2 maids in the mansion who were good at embroidery, and she was thinking of making a few sets of winter clothes for the young lady. "Walk forward, I've been sitting for too long today, I want to stretch my muscles and bones, and buy what I like." When I walked to Zhendong Street, I saw groups of people gathered together, talking and laughing. Qiuju's curiosity was aroused, and she smiled and said, "Miss, what good things happened in the capital today? Look how happy everyone is." Zhang Shiyu looked up and saw that the Ziwixian pavilion with a seal was opposite the crowd. She smiled faintly. If everyone has a smile on their face, it means that the people are living a comfortable life, which is a good thing. "Miss, what you said makes sense. With a wise ruler like the emperor, this prosperous dynasty will surely prosper forever." Looking at Qiuju and Yuranjian's looks, Zhang Shiyu couldn't help but tease, "How can you be so sure? Whether he is a wise ruler or not, it will take time to verify. The emperor is not greedy for women, diligent in government and loves the people. Of course he is a wise ruler." Zhang Shiyu smiled and shook her head. As she was about to walk to a crowded place, she didn't continue to talk about this disrespectful topic. "What's not greedy for women? It's just that he hasn't had time to choose a concubine yet. Once the harem is full of flowers, no man can resist that kind of temptation." When she was in the clinic, she heard gossip from Yin Qiao and others that the noble families in the capital were all looking for foster maids in private. It goes without saying that there are naturally girls of the right age in the family, and everyone is quietly preparing, waiting for the day when the emperor will select the selection. It's really gratifying. I heard that the gold, silver, and jewelry seized from the warehouse have piled up into a small mountain. Wow! He is worthy of being the father-in-law of the previous dynasty. He is really rich enough to rival a country. Passing by the crowd, I heard a woman say to the other people. Zhang Shiyu and Kyoju looked at each other and slowed down their pace. Another person said, "It's nothing for his family to have mountains of gold and silver, but he has so many servants, and they are all kung fu. What is he thinking?" Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to let us know. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 173. What else can you think of usurping the throne? You can pull him down. What can he accomplish with his few servants? They are just thugs he raises to help the tyrants do evil. I happened to be passing by when the Jin Yaiwei took those losers away, and a lot of people were clapping and applauding. The women were talking to each other so much that they were spitting, and Zhang Shiyu was greatly surprised after hearing this. Prime Minister Wei's house was ransacked. Qiuju wanted to continue listening, so Zhang Shiyu pulled her to walk a few steps quickly. "Miss, don't you want to know what happened to the second young lady?" Zhang Shiyu kept walking. "Her house has been confiscated. Even if she is not exiled, she will have to go back to her hometown with the Wei family to eat glutinous rice. What good can she get?" Zhang Shiyu had expected this result, but Xiao Jingzhao moved a little slower than she expected in order to obtain evidence of Prime Minister Wei's crime. While the two were shopping, they heard people talking about the Prime Minister's mansion from time to time. Zhang Shuyu was in a good mood. She and Xiuju bought a roast goose and some pastries that Sushui liked. Let's talk about the day before the Prime Minister's mansion. Zhang Jiaojiao was so hungry that she couldn't sleep at night. She ate all the cakes in the house after dinner. Son, mother can't let you go hungry, Zhang Jiaojiao said to herself, stroking her belly that was not yet pregnant. She stood up, opened the closet, took out a cloak and put it on. Kaiyan was awakened by the sound of the wardrobe opening and rubbed her eyes. Second miss, are you going to my uncle's courtyard? Aunt Chen has told you that you cannot sleep with your uncle before you give birth to a child. Who said I'm going to find that heartless guy like him? After I found out I was pregnant, I rarely saw anyone else. Get up quickly. I'm hungry. Let's go to the big kitchen to find something to eat. Zhang Jiaojiao felt angry when she talked about Wei Mingzhou. After Aunt Chen learned that she was pregnant, she took her distant niece to the Prime Minister's mansion the next day. Everyone in the courtyard kept it secret from her. Later, the maid next to the eldest lady revealed to her that if the old lady straightened her up, Aunt Chen would beg the old lady to marry her distant niece and become Wei Mingzhou's equal wife. Zhang Jiaojiao was so angry that she closed the door and cursed Aunt Chen in the room. Kaiyan quickly got up and dressed, and the two of them quickly left the courtyard. The night breeze was slightly cool, and Zhang Jiaojiao gathered up her cloak. The night was like thick ink that had not melted away, and it looked like it was going to rain. In the distance, the lanterns on the corridor swayed in the night wind, looking desolate and deserted. Miss, it's already past supper time, and the big kitchen has been locked. Kaiyan walked to the hanging flower door and looked out. The woman on night duty was nowhere to be seen in the small hall outside. Zhang Jiaojiao walked to the big kitchen without giving up. As expected, the kitchen was locked. The housekeeper in the kitchen had already gone to bed at this time. As a concubine, it was impossible for the housekeeper to get up from bed and cook a bowl of noodles for her. Zhang Jiaojiao hesitated for a while, then gritted her teeth and said, "Let's go to the eldest lady's place to see. The eldest lady may sleep late." The two of them turned around and walked towards the eldest lady's yard. They walked through the garden and entered the cloister. In the distance, they could see the faint light of candles between the carved window lattice. Just when the two of them were about to reach the end of the corridor, they heard footsteps coming from the direction of the corner door. Kaiyan quickly grabbed Zhang Jiaojiao and hid behind the pillars in the corridor. The footsteps were getting closer and closer, and the voice of a servant woman sounded, "Don't panic when you see the eldest lady later. This is not the first time that I have stayed in the palace. Maybe the emperor has important things that I need to do." "No, that's not right. It's been 2 whole days. I've been serving the master for so many years, but I've never seen him stay overnight in the palace." The man's voice sounded anxious. "On weekdays, foreign men are not allowed in the inner courtyard. You will report to madam and come out quickly." The voice of the woman guarding the corner gate was impatient. "Thank you, auntie. I'll leave soon after I reported it." The voices were getting farther and farther away. Zhang Jiaojiao poked her head out, and under the dim light, 2 figures walked towards the eldest lady's yard. "Miss, are we still going? If the master hasn't come home, will the eldest lady not be interested in talking to us?" Zhang Jiaojiao was excited and her heart thumped. Unless there are special circumstances, men are never allowed to stay overnight in the palace. This is written into the palace rules. The old man has not returned home for 2 days, and everything is calm in the capital. Is something wrong? Zhang Jiaojiao had a bad feeling in her heart. She looked up at the dark night sky again, and suddenly she felt like a storm was about to come and the building was filled with wind. Seeing that Zhang Jiaojiao was silent, Kaiyan asked again, "Miss, should we go or not? It's late at night and you're exposed. You're naked now, So don't catch a cold. Go, you must go. Zhang Jiao's voice was full of despair. When she entered the Wei family, there was no marriage certificate. Normally, a concubine would have to sign a contract of sale. After all, Zhang Jiao was Zhang Zhenming's concubine, and the Wei family did not force the Zhang family to sign a deed of prostitution. There was no marriage certificate and no contract to sell herself as a concubine. The eldest lady only asked Zhang Jiao to hand over the yellow book in her hand to restrain her freedom. Strictly speaking, Zhang Jiao was not even a member of the Wei family. However, the eldest lady promised her that she would make up for the marriage certificate when she made her his wife. Kayan, I will tell the eldest lady later that someone from the Shangshu mansion has asked me to go back. Just don't listen and don't help. Miss, why are you going back? Recently I heard that matchmakers are almost crossing the threshold of Shangshu mansion. I will not be happy if you go back. What the master said when I went back last time is still ringing in my mind. Kayan really doesn't want the young lady to go back and bring trouble on herself. Zhang Jiao didn't dare to speak out her doubts, fearing that Kayan's panic would make the eldest lady aware of her intentions. She sighed and said, I have something important to do when I go back. You just nod your head. Kayan nodded and was about to move forward. Zhang Jiao grabbed her and said, Don't worry, wait until the old woman guarding the corner gate and the coachman serving the old man come out before we go over. After a while, seeing the two figures returning to the original path, Zhang Jiao pulled Kayan and walked forward quickly. Miss, please go slowly, don't let the young master in your belly get upset. How can you be so stingy? Hurry up, don't let the eldest lady rest in a while. Not to mention getting upset, as long as she leaves the Wei family, the first thing she will do is to go to the clinic to buy abortion pills to get rid of him. When the two walked quickly to the gate of the courtyard, Kayan pushed the door, and the gate was already closed. Zhang Jiao knocked on the door hurriedly and heavily. Soon, footsteps were heard from inside. Madam Zhang, you are not sleeping in the middle of the night. My wife has to go to bed. The maid opened the door and saw Zhang Jiao. Her face immediately fell. I will say a word to the eldest lady and leave, so as not to disturb her rest. Kayan hurriedly said with a smile, Sister, please help inform her. Aunt wants to see the lady, of course it is something important. The maid reluctantly led the two in. After the greetings, Zhang Jiao went straight to the point, Madam, please give me the yellow book for me to use. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 174. The eldest lady had already removed her makeup, and the maid beside her was combing her hair with a wooden comb. She raised her hand to let the maid stop and asked, What do you want the yellow book for? Zhang Jiao raised her eyes to look at the tired look on the eldest lady's face, pretending not to notice it. She smiled and bowed again, Madam, you don't know, today my father sent someone to deliver a message saying that my aunt is going to Qinglian temple outside the city to burn incense and pray for blessings, and my father asked me to accompany my aunt. Has the relationship between your aunt and your father eased? The eldest lady did not doubt it. It was not uncommon for the wives of noble families to help their aunts become the main wife, or demoted to concubines. If Zhang Jiao's aunt became the main wife again, and Zhang Jiao naturally restored her status as a legitimate daughter, the Wei family would give Zhang Jiao a betrothal gift and marriage certificate in advance. It is normal for a couple to quarrel at the head of the bed and make up at the foot of the bed. Zhang Jiao smiled slightly, Thank you madam for your concern. My father and my aunt have always had a good relationship. My marriage has caused a rift between them. I feel extremely guilty. My father has sent someone to tell me that as a child, I dare not disobey. I will take this opportunity to go back and ease the relationship with my father. As a child, I should do so. The eldest lady said and waved to the maid in the room, Go and get Madame Jiang's yellow book. The maid frowned and said, "Someone from Madame Jiang's family came to tell her. Why didn't the housekeeper come to report it? All matters in the inner house of the mansion must be reported to the eldest lady. This has always been the rule of the Prime Minister's mansion." Zhang Jiaojiao hurriedly explained when she heard it, "I had severe morning sickness today, so I thought of going to the street to buy some sour fruits to suppress it. I never thought that I would meet someone from my family as soon as I walked out of the door." "Is there such a coincidence?" The eldest lady looked back and forth between the master and the servant with a puzzled look. Kaiyan dared not speak, and nodded vigorously. Zhang Jiaojiao was in a state of confusion, silently chanting Amitba. She was in a state of panic, but she had to pretend to be calm on the surface, for she was afraid that the eldest lady would be serious and ask the doorman to question her. "Since your father sent someone, I can't stop you. You are now a twin, so it's not appropriate for you to go out. If you have morning sickness in the future, you can go to the palace doctor to get medicine. I will send someone to greet the palace doctor tomorrow, and you can find him at any time." "Thank you, madam, for your understanding." Hearing the eldest lady's words, Zhang Jiaojiao bowed slightly, and when she looked up, she saw the maid turned around to get the yellow book, and her heart fell. Seeing the maid handing over the yellow book, Zhang Jiaojiao's heart instantly jumped to her throat again. She was afraid that the eldest lady would notice something and suddenly regret it, so she pretended to be calm and took the yellow book slowly. "Go back and see if your father is doing well recently. The new emperor has just ascended the throne and is busy with affairs." How could Zhang Jiaojiao not understand what the eldest lady meant? She casually put the yellow book into her sleeve and bowed slightly. "Thank you for your concern, madam. The last time I went back, I saw that my father had lost weight. There are too many trivial matters in the Ministry of Revenue. My aunt said that my father is often busy in the palace until late at night before returning home. Tomorrow I will ask the housekeeper to prepare a gift for you. If you go back to your parents' home empty-handed, Lord Zhang will misunderstand that I, the mistress of the house, treat you harshly." The eldest lady has a soft voice and is as virtuous as usual. If people who don't know her character, they will praise her as a virtuous mistress. Zhang Jiaojiao can see clearly what kind of person she is. The eldest lady is a clan woman personally selected by Madame Wei. The eldest lady was once a famous lady, proficient in piano, chess, calligraphy, and painting. She has a dignified and generous face, is used to doing superficial work, and her scheming and skills are not inferior to those of the old lady. The huge Prime Minister's mansion is managed in an orderly manner by her. "Thank you, madam. It's getting late. Let's take a rest." Zhang Jiaojiao and Kaiyan stepped back and bowed, preparing to leave. What gifts or not, with the yellow book in hand, she can go wherever she wants. As for whether the Wei family is exiled or dismissed, it has nothing to do with her. Thinking that the Wei family might be in great trouble, Zhang Jiaojiao wanted to turn around and run. "Wait, aren't you having morning sickness? Take this plate of fruit back. Although it's a little sweet, it's better than being uncomfortable." The eldest lady pointed to the fruit plate on the coffee table. There was also a full plate of walnut crisps next to the fruit plate. Zhang Jiaojiao swallowed her saliva and smiled uncomfortably, saying, "Thank you, madam, for the reward. I get hungry quickly when I'm pregnant. The walnut crisps won't be crispy tomorrow. Why don't you give them to me as a reward?" The maid next to her looked sarcastic. Madame Wei naturally knew what the share of the concubine's room was like. She said to the maid in the room, "Take them all with her. Tomorrow, ask the steward to give Wang Chenyuan an extra portion of cakes." The maid went to get a food box and poured all the food on the small table into it. Cai Yan had a blank expression on her face, and her heart was filled with mixed feelings. The life of her second young lady in the Shangshu mansion was no worse than that of the young ladies in the Prime Minister's mansion. Sands, silks, gold hairpins, and jade rings, she had never been so humble for a bite of food. Even as a servant, she never had to shamelessly ask the master for cakes. The second young lady would naturally give them after tasting them. Cai Yan felt embarrassed, but she still took the food box. After leaving the courtyard, Zhang Jiaojiao felt relieved and walked back along the nearest road in the garden. Seeing the second young lady panicking and not knowing where to go, Cai Yan followed with tears in her eyes. A concubine's daughter is a concubine's daughter, something that cannot be put on the stage. The head maid curled her lips in disdain when she saw the two people walking away. Shut up, be careful with your words, there are concubines' daughters in the Prime Minister's mansion too. If someone hears what you said, they will say that I, the mistress, look down on concubines' daughters, the eldest lady scolded softly. The maid quickly bowed her head and admitted her mistake. Madam, you are right to scold me. I was wrong. Call Aunt Chen tomorrow. She has privately deducted the share of Wang Chenyuan. She must make up for it. In the future, the share of Wang Chenyuan will be sent directly to Wang Chenyuan. The maid took the order and left, thinking that the eldest lady was really kind and cared so much about the concubines in the concubines' room. The maids had no idea what the eldest lady was thinking. In the past, the Wei family could call the wind and rain in the court and even the entire capital, like boiling oil on a raging fire. From the death of the queen to the change of dynasties, the Wei family was declining at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even the people of the second and third rooms began to make their own plans in private, and there were signs of disintegration. Zhang Zhengming was at least a third-rank official of the court. Having this in-law was a useful helper. Second miss, watch your step. Just as she walked out of Wang Chenyuan, Kaiyan saw Zhang Jiaojiao staggering and hurriedly reached out to pull her. Don't worry about me, go back to the courtyard, Zhang Jiaojiao panted, and pushed open the courtyard door before she could stand firmly. Kaiyan followed closely behind, and Zhang Jiaojiao turned around and put down the door bar. Miss, why are you closing the door? The maids will come to clean up the fallen leaves in the courtyard early tomorrow morning. Wangchun courtyard is remote, and there are no valuables in the house. In order to facilitate the maids to enter and exit, the courtyard door is usually ajar and not closed. Zhang Jiaojiao walked quickly into the house, saying as she walked, don't talk nonsense, go in and pack your bags, let's run away quickly, it may be too late if we are late. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 175. Kaiyan was shocked. Miss, why are you running away? Who wants to harm us? Is it Aunt Chen? In Kaiyan's heart, the person in the Prime Minister's mansion who dislikes the lady the most is Aunt Chen. After entering the house, Zhang Jiaojiao pulled Kaiyan and rushed to the closet. Pack your clothes quickly, if it's not Aunt Chen, the old thing may be detained in the Ministry of Justice. The sky in the Prime Minister's mansion is about to fall. We must leave tonight. Zhang Jiaojiao opened the closet door, pushed Kaiyan forward, turned around and rushed to the dressing table. Although she had no dowry, Aunt Yang secretly gave her some valuable jewelry when she returned to Shangshu Mansion last time. Mrs. Wei was always good at showing off her face. After she became pregnant, she also gave her 2 pieces of jewelry. Although the styles were not the most fashionable in the capital, they were both made of real gold and silver. The gold bracelet Mrs. Wei gave her as a reward was solid. Zhang Jiaojiao's words were like thunder in the clear sky, causing Kaiyan's mind to go blank. Second, Miss Second, let's go out at this time, will the concierge let us go? Kaiyan quickly recovered and asked stammering, her heart trembling. Stop being so nagging, quickly put away the clothes you picked up. I'll find a way to get out. Don't even take your clothes with you. Zhang Jiaojiao opened the drawer and took out the jewelry box. She picked up the makeup box and put it down again. It was too heavy. Zhang Jiaojiao said without turning her head, give me a piece of cloth quickly. The makeup box is too heavy, so just bring a jewelry box. Her jewelry combined is not even 1/10 of what it used to be. Kayan hurriedly took out a piece of inconspicuous cotton cloth from the closet and handed it over. She asked the housekeeper to make this cotton cloth for her unborn young master. The master and servant were all at their wits' end and quickly packed up the 2 bags. Kayan wanted to get the fruit in the food box, but Zhang Jiaojiao held her back. Why are you getting any fruit at this time? I want pastries to paralyze the eldest lady on purpose. Come on, carry the table to the backyard with me, go. Only then did Kayan realize that the second lady was deliberately pretending to be humble in front of the eldest lady. She said that there was a way out, not through the front door, but by climbing over the backyard wall. Except for the maidservants, no one comes to Wangchun courtyard on weekdays. Even if they make some noise, no one will notice. Kayan was so nervous that she forgot that the second lady was pregnant, so the 2 of them worked together to move all the tables and chairs in the house to the backyard wall. Zhang Jiaojiao was like a shrewd woman, not at all frail as before. She grabbed 2 sheets and quickly tied them into a tight knot. Kayan climbed onto the table and gently shook the chair on the table. When she saw that it was not shaking, she reached out and pulled Zhang Jiaojiao up. Miss, wait a minute. I will climb up and throw the baggage over the wall before helping you up. Kayan said and stepped on it with 1 foot. The wall of the Prime Minister's mansion was 1 foot higher than the walls of ordinary homes, and the top of the wall was covered with golden wall tiles. A table and a chair, with a distance of half a person's height above it. Kayan held the wall tiles and threw the 2 bundles down. Miss, please go over first, my servant will support you. Kayan squatted down and returned to the table. Zhang Jiaojiao did not hesitate to wrap one end of the sheet around her arm a few times before pulling it into the palm of her hand. She handed the other end to Kayan. You have to wrap it around your arm, so hold on tight. Second miss, don't worry, I will fight to the death and not let you fall. The weak candlelight shines through the mulioned window grills, and 2 figures climb out of the wall one after the other. Outside the wall, 2 black figures squatted on the ground for a while, unable to get up. How's it going? Can we still leave? If we don't leave before dawn, we will definitely be taken back. Zhang Jiaojiao stood up slowly and lowered her head to ask Kayan. When Zhang Jiaojiao came down, it was Kayan who was holding the sheets on top so that she could land safely. But Kayan jumped down from the high wall. When she landed on the ground, she sprained one of her ankles. The pain was so painful that Kayan grimaced and didn't dare to moan. Kayan rubbed her ankle with her hands. She felt a sharp pain when her fingers touched her ankle. She held onto the wall with one hand and stood up. No problem, I can walk. Second miss, where are we going? Kayan put the bag on her shoulder. Zhang Jiaojiao picked up the bag containing the jewelry and held it in her hand, looking at the lights of thousands of houses in the distance. Yes. Where to go? If she returns to Shangshu Mansion, will her father feel that she has disgraced the Zhang family and expel her from Shangshu Mansion like he did his eldest sister? If he went to seek refuge with his aunt, and he had caused his cousin to become disabled, her aunt would definitely not take her in. In the middle of the night, 2 women were walking on the street. It would be terrible if they encountered a gangster. After weighing the pros and cons, Zhang Jiaojiao gritted her teeth and said, "Go back to Shangshu's mansion. I'll leave it to fate whether my father wants to be killed or beheaded. It is said that the poison of a tiger will not eat its seeds, so her father would never send her back to the Prime Minister's mansion. She has got the yellow book back. As long as she insists that it has nothing to do with the Prime Minister's mansion, even the Emperor can't do anything to her." Under the cover of night, the 2 of them limped towards the Shangshu mansion. At dawn, an inconspicuous carriage drove out of Shangshu's mansion and drove straight out of the capital. Immediately afterwards, the news spread throughout the capital that the Prime Minister's mansion was surrounded by Jin Yiwei. When Zhang Shuyu and Xiuju returned home, Nangang Ziya greeted them from the front hall. "Shuyu, have you heard? The scholars in King Yunzai are talking about it? I heard, Your Majesty is wise, the Wei family is the biggest cancer among the veterans. Without the Wei family, the air in the capital will be much cleaner. Zhang Shuyu handed the food in her hand to Kaiju. Go prepare a jar of wine and send it to the flower hall, we will have a drink together later. Shuyu, I'm not talking about the Prime Minister's mansion being raided. I'm talking about the poem you had posted on King Yunzai. The scholars are asking around to find out who Yu Niang is. Zhang Shuyu smiled calmly, since I dare to sign my name, I'm not afraid of people knowing me. I'm just a woman, how can scholars come to worship me as a teacher? Nangang Ziyu opened his mouth and swallowed back what he wanted to say. Today, the Prime Minister's mansion was raided, and the scholars who were preparing for the exam at home came to the study room to meet as if they had made an appointment. Everyone hasn't seen each other for a long time. From the Prime Minister's imprisonment to this year's imperial examination questions, the scholars expressed their opinions and discussed very intensely. When a scholar saw the poem hanging on the wall, he read it out loud. Look at this tissue, it looks familiar. I remember that this calligraphy was written by one person. The signature is Yu Niang. I said this calligraphy looks like it was written by a woman, it is more beautiful than strong. Who is Yu Niang? Does Mr. Nangang know her? The scholars cast their inquiring eyes to Nangang Ziyu who was sitting in front of the window. Nangang Ziyu smiled faintly and joked, who cares who she is, she won't compete with you for the top scholar anyway, right? A scholar straightened his thin chest, Mister, you are wrong, when I pass the imperial examination, I will go to Yu Niang's house to propose marriage and ask to marry Yu Niang as my wife. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 176. More than one scholar said this, and some seemed to be joking. Nangang Ziyu could see clearly that the scholars' admiration for Yu Niang's talent was palpable. If the scholars knew that Yu Niang lived in Zhang Mansion, I'm afraid the scholars would really be able to come to propose marriage. I really can't say this. How's it going, Uncle Master, in the palace? Did the assessment at Tai Hospital go well today? Nangang Ziyu changed the subject. Uncle Lin is very good. If nothing else happens, Uncle Lin can hold an official position in the hospital. The two of them talked and walked side by side to the flower hall of Xingyu courtyard. After Nangang Ziyu sat down, Lan'er brought tea. Zhang Shuyu went back to the inner room and changed into comfortable clothes. Apart from the jewelry, her silky black hair was tied loosely behind her head with a ribbon, looking fresh and elegant. Nangang Ziyu quickly looked away with just one glance, picked up the teapot, poured a cup of tea and put it on the opposite side. Zhang Shuyu walked over and sat down, took a sip of tea, and said with a smile, it's a pity that it's just the two of us. It would be great if Du Yutong was here too. There are so many people and it's lively. When Sujin and Sunan arrive, won't it be lively? Nangang Ziyu, what do you think of Miss Du? Nangang Ziyu's fox eyes were full of vigilance, what does she have to do with me? Then he turned to Lan'er and said, the young master should be playing in the garden at home right now. Bring him over and have dinner with him. Don't change the subject, just tell me whether you two are suitable or not. I have only met her once, when she went to your medical clinic. She and I are not familiar with each other and it is inappropriate. Zhang Shuyu looked at Nangang Ziyu as if she were a fool, who said it's inappropriate if you don't know her well? It's love at first sight, do you understand? You can pull me down. It's obviously because of sex. If someone tells you that you fell in love at first sight in the future, don't believe it. I'm a man. Of course I understand men's thoughts best. There are countless ugly women on the street, but I haven't seen anyone go up to me tell them it's love at first sight. Zhang Shiyu. It seems reasonable. What is really suitable should be love that lasts for a long time, just like. Mom, does Daddy like wild apples? Before Nangang Ziyu could say anything, she was interrupted by Sui Sui, who flew in. The soft and glutinous dumpling bumped into her arms, and Zhang Shiyu's heart softened. She hugged her son and let out a chirp. Mom didn't have time to see your father taste it, but he must like it. Zhang Shiyu never lied in front of her son. Although there were exceptions, they were all related to that person. Uncle Nangang served wild apples for dinner yesterday. Daddy will definitely like it. Just when Zhang Shiyu was about to take her son to sit next to her, Sui Sui broke away and said, there are differences between men and women. The child will sit with Uncle Nangang. After saying that, she walked to the opposite side with a serious face. Nangang Ziyu picked up Sushui and placed it beside him skillfully. Zhang Shiyu was speechless. When the little guy wanted to stick to her, he was like a dogskin plaster. After getting tired of it, he said there was a difference between men and women. Seeing Zhang Shiyu holding her forehead, Nangang Ziyu chuckled and said, he will grow up eventually. It is a good thing to become independent early. When did he become independent? He went to sleep with you next door last night. Don't think I don't know. Zhang Shiyu glared at Nangang Ziyu angrily. Uncle Nangang is a man, and the child is also a man. I can live in the same house with Uncle Nangang. Nangang Ziyu held back her laughter. He would not say that he would habitually pull his pajamas and hold them in his hands when he went to bed every night. After a while, Qiuju led the maid to bring food and wine. That night, Zhang Shiyu had a good sleep. At this time, the lights in Taiwei's mansion were still bright. Before Wu Taiwei could change out of his official robe, he was called over by the old lady. As soon as Wu Taiwei entered the room, he saw two legitimate sons and a concubine in the room. Mother, what are you? Wu Taiwei didn't understand why his mother asked the children to come over so late. He bowed and sat down under the old lady. I know everything about the Wei family today. Your Majesty is merciful. He confiscated the Wei family and did not exile his family members. I just want to ask, will his affairs involve us? Mrs. Wu stared at Taiwei Wu steadily, not missing a trace on his face, for fear that he would lie to prevent herself from being angry. No, I know it well. Although I have helped him in the past, it was just a matter of favor. Seeing her son's decisive words, Mrs. Wu closed her eyes slightly and took a deep breath. She had been worrying for nothing all day, and she could finally let go of her worries. After a while, Mrs. Wu looked seriously at her son and three grandchildren. You all listen to me. Today is different from the past. We can no longer form cliques for personal gain. Wu Taiwei said, my son doesn't know how to do it. In the past, he was forced by the situation. Besides, the Queen Mother's aunt was overpowering Queen Wei, so the conveniences she gave him were insignificant. Mrs. Wu nodded with satisfaction, that's good. Grandma, don't worry, my grandson won't do it either. Yesterday, my friend asked me whether I could help him with the scientific examination this year. I decisively refused. Wu Lin, the second son of Wu, was a concubine and he was the first to express his stance. Taiwei Wu arranged a job for Wu Lin in the Ministry of Etiquette. The venue for this year's scientific examination is still in Gongyuan. The Ministry of Rites sent people to prepare for the examination room, and Wu Lin was among them. Wu Kai, the eldest son of Wu, also stood up and saluted, Grandma, don't worry, my grandson did seek personal gain in Honglu Temple, but after the new emperor ascended the throne, everyone restrained himself. Honglu Temple is responsible for receiving foreign envoys, and all the good people inside are in the hands of wealthy families. In the past, the management was chaotic, and there were not many people inside who were well educated. Wu Taiwei glared at Wu Kai, be more careful when you are on duty in the future. Although the emperor is young, he is not a simple person. Wu Kai bowed his hands. I understand. For example, the emperor sentenced the prime minister to take weapons privately. If the sentence is too severe, the Wei family can also be charged with privately raising a dead soldier with bad intentions. Wu Su, the third son of the Wu family, raised his eyebrows and chuckled, brother, you and dad still underestimated the emperor. Wu Taiwei was not angry at all. The third son worked in the Ministry of War. Although he seemed rough, he was more delicate than the other two sons. Recalling the new people the emperor promoted recently, one of them was from the loyal and brave mansion of his wife's family. He frowned slightly. Old third, do you mean that the emperor intends to suppress old officials and support new nobles? This is only one aspect. We should be careful in the future. We don't seek merit, but we should avoid mistakes. Especially father, if the emperor intends to appoint someone as prime minister, father must fully support it to show loyalty. Wu Taiwei understood. Father, I understand that as long as you are loyal to the emperor will definitely not target the Wu family. The Wei family members were not exiled, but they were bound to be dismissed. If there are girls from the Wei family who are living in a brothel, you must not touch them. When Mrs. Wu said this, a trace of discomfort flashed across her face. Wu Taiwei turned his head and looked at his three sons, and said sternly, have you remembered your grandmother's words? Wu Kai. Wu Lin. Wu Su glanced at his two brothers tactfully. Grandma, don't worry, I will keep an eye on my eldest and second brothers and will never do anything to take advantage of others' misfortunes. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article feed, placement, below article feed, target. Type, mix. After being expelled from the palace, she returned with her cub and amazed the whole city. Author, Hanggu. Chapter 177. Wu Kai and Wu Lin were slow to react. When they wanted to argue, they saw their grandmother wave her sleeves and said, it's getting late. I'm tired. Let's go back to the house and rest. Grandma, have a good rest. I'll come to see you tomorrow. Wu Kai stood up and saluted, then ran out in a flash. Wait, third brother. Wu Kai and Wu Lin saluted hurriedly and chased after him with gritted teeth. Just as Wu Taiwei stood up to say goodbye, the old lady suddenly said, as a father, you should be at the side. Mother. I understand. Wu Taiwei looked at his mother's questioning eyes and realized that he couldn't explain the matter clearly, so he fled in a hurry. Officials above the third rank in the capital were granted mansions. For any official who was convicted, the court would take back the mansion and keep it for another allocation. After the Wei family was dismissed, the prime minister's mansion was bound to be taken back by the court. The Wei family either returned to their hometown or went to seek refuge with distant relatives in the capital. Since ancient times, there have been young ladies from official families who have nowhere to go and fell into prostitution in order to survive. Especially those who are not on good terms with each other in the officialdom, when they see the other party's family members fall into prostitution, they will go and trample and ravage them maliciously. There are also officials who covet their beauty and buy them into the mansion as concubines. Wu Taiwei understood his mother's concerns. In the past, his aunt and Queen Wei were not on good terms in the palace, and they were secretly competing with each other. The old lady was worried that she would take the opportunity to vent her anger. Wu Taiwei smiled bitterly and shook his head and walked back. When he reached the end of the corridor, his steps paused slightly. After a little thought, he turned and walked towards the courtyard of his wife, Mrs. Huo. There are too many things today. I have to go and talk to my wife, otherwise I will feel very depressed. Mrs. Huo had already lain down at this time. When she heard the maid report, she got up. My husband, I thought you went to another courtyard, so I went to bed without waiting for you. Mrs. Huo was about to get out of bed, but Wu Taiwei waved his hand. You don't need to get out of bed. I have already told the maid to prepare water for bathing. Wu Taiwei was full of admiration for his foolish wife's ability to lie with open eyes. If he remembered correctly, he had never seen Mrs. Huo wait for him to go to bed in more than 20 years of marriage. They were an old couple, so Mrs. Huo put the clothes in her handbag without hesitation, picked up a pillow and put it behind her, and leaned back lazily. Have you left the house today? Wu Taiwei undressed and looked back at his worry-free wife. Mrs. Huo raised her eyebrows slightly and yawned sleepily. She said with a dull look, everything has been going well in the mansion recently. I haven't messed up anything. My mother didn't put me under house arrest. I went home after leaving the mansion for a while. I didn't buy anything. Wu Taiwei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was not ashamed but proud of his wife. She made house arrest seem lightly, as if it was a common occurrence and not worth mentioning. As long as she didn't mess up anything, she would have made a contribution. Even if the old lady didn't praise her, she would be happy for a long time. She was so careless that she would be wasted if she didn't become the prime minister. Knowing that his wife could not hide her secrets, Wu Taiwei glanced at her. Are you scared by the Wei family's affairs? My husband, will the new emperor deal with our family? Should we send people to buy a house outside the capital and a few dozen acres of land? Mrs. Huo pulled the quilt and said, you were on duty in the palace, so you didn't see the scene of the house raiding. It was too scary. Hundreds of people in the Wei family were driven out of the prime minister's mansion with only clothes wrapped in their clothes. The miserable scene was like a dog that lost its home. It was really miserable. The Wei family and the Wu family were also relatives in the past, but there were two mountains that could not be crossed between them. Mrs. Huo heard that the female doctor of Jishitang had superb medical skills and could be called a miracle doctor. She had not found out the whereabouts of Miss Zhang for a long time. When the old lady saw her going to pay her respects, she said she had a headache. As a daughter-in-law, she should be filial. She asked the palace doctor, and the palace doctor said that the old lady was not sick. Today, when she took her maid to Jishitang, she came to nothing. The apprentice of the female doctor said that the master had gone out for something. She simply went for a walk on the street. She never expected to witness the scene where the Wei family was driven out of the mansion by the Jinyi Wei. The maid reminded her to leave quickly and not let Madame Wei see her. According to her personality, if Madame Wei asked her for help, she really couldn't save face and stand by and watch, and she would lend a helping hand to some extent. Wu Taiwei looked at Mrs. Huo as if she were a fool. What's the point of buying so many houses, shops, and lands? Do you think the Jinyi Wei are all vegetarians? They can investigate you thoroughly without the Ministry of Revenue and Jingzai. Mrs. Huo covered her face and wailed, it's over. If the house is searched, there will be nothing left. Wu Taiwei said seriously, that's not the case. Didn't you say that the Wei family brought clothes and wrapped them up? This time it was Huo's turn to look at a fool. She rolled her eyes, what's the value of clothes and bedding? Even if you smuggle some jewelry and don't get found by the officials, how long can you hold out if you pawn it? Excluding the servants, there are more than 100 people. Food, clothing, housing, and transportation all cost money. Husband, our Wu family doesn't have as many people as the Wei family. What if the emperor wants to deal with us? After being asked by the foolish woman, Wu Taiwei was unsure. The new emperor doesn't show his emotions, and no one can figure out his temperament. In the past, he rarely summoned ministers after the morning court session, but today, for the first time, he kept the ministers in the side hall for breakfast, which was just cakes and tea. He collected the ministers' self-examination memorials and evidence of the prime minister's crimes, and then pretended to ask for a plan to punish Prime Minister Wei, and then left in a hurry. It wasn't until the ministers left the palace that they learned how sinister the new emperor was. He had already made a conclusion on how to judge Prime Minister Wei, and he was still asking the ministers for their opinions in the palace. Lieutenant Wu secretly sweated. Looking back on today, he seemed to have said the right thing. Tomorrow, ask my mother to go to the fourth brother's house or the fifth brother's house, and then ask them to write a letter of separation and clear the relationship. If I am convicted in the future, Chi-Yu will not be affected. You usually have a good brain, but why are you so stupid now? Your fourth and fifth brothers are commoners. If you lose power, how can they still support your mother in her old age? Stop dreaming about your childhood dreams. Madam, aren't you confused? Captain Wu praised Huo for a rare occasion. Do you really think I'm stupid? I'm just too lazy to care. They say trouble never comes to a married woman. Your two sisters are both from the same mother. If something happens, you have to count on them. Huo, she said, and glared at Wu Taiwei. Wu Taiwei casually put the robe in his hand on the hanger and walked over to hold Huo's hand. With a wife like this, what more can a husband ask for? If I really encounter trouble one day, I will definitely find a way to prevent you from being implicated. Huo's eyes lit up and she held Wu Taiwei's hand back excitedly. Husband, why don't you write a divorce letter to me? If that day comes, I will take the divorce letter and the dowry and go back to my parents' home. Your Majesty, won't you know how much dowry I have, don't you? Huo thought this idea was a good one, and winked at Taiwei Wu as he spoke.